Welcome to A Call to Action, a series presented by Brattleboro Community Television and Great Eastern Radio. We're covering many different topics with these interviews, from food chain supplies to the stimulus package. Today, we are going to be speaking with Dan Yates, president of Brattleboro Savings and Loan. Thank you for joining the video cast.
Thanks for inviting me. It's important.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, and of course, there's been some chatter that I've heard, which is why I wanted you to maybe set the record straight and help us understand about how COVID-19 and the whole pandemic is maybe disrupting or not disrupting the banking industry. So let's address the elephant right in the room. Do people need to concern themselves about making a run on the banks?
Absolutely not. The banks are open for business. We have money. We're asking people not to come to the bank in person. Come and use our drive-ups. If they need to get into the bank, perhaps to go into their safe deposit box or to apply for a loan, we're allowing them in by appointment. But this is in large part having our lobbies closed to just keep people safe and to make sure that we're all practicing appropriate social distancing. And most of the banks have taken this action, Peter, that it's best to limit that interaction. But the bank's open for business. People have many tools at their disposal to access their money. Online banking, mobile banking, they can pay bills, they can send money to other people. Our ATMs are fully stocked. They can come and cash checks at the drive-up. If somebody's asking for a significant amount of cash, which I don't think is necessarily a good idea, because the safest place to have your money is in the bank, we may say to them, we can accommodate that, but we'll need a day or two to get another shipment. We want to ensure that we're meeting the cash needs on a regular basis, as opposed to large-scale withdrawals. But the banking system is safe. I think the most important message is this is a healthcare crisis, not a financial crisis.
Well, I think if I could just kind of piggyback off that, I mean, I think people are looking at their long-term financial investments in their 401ks, if you've got money in the stock market, and I think that can fuel a little panic around, say, like your bank, the Brattleboro Savings and Loan, or a larger bank such as TD Bank or Citibank. But so if you could just sort of explain the process and maybe about how monies are insured.
Of course. So since the Great Depression of the 1930s, when the FDIC was created by President Roosevelt, depositors' money has been insured by the full faith and credit of the federal government. And those amounts have changed over the course of the decades since the FDIC's founding. I think when I first got into banking, $40,000 was the amount of money that was insured by the FDIC. Then it went to $100,000. And then back at the time of the financial crisis, 2008, 2009, that was raised to $250,000. It's also important for people to understand that there are ways to actually leverage the FDIC insurance to more than $1 million. And anybody that's interested should go to the FDIC's website, which is simply fdic.gov, and look for a link to what's called EDIE, EDIE. It is an online calculator that will help people navigate FDIC insurance. So for example, I have $250,000, I wish, in the bank in my name. That's insured. My wife, she has $250,000 in the bank in her name. That's insured. So collectively, because we each own those accounts separately, we have $500,000 worth of FDIC insurance coverage. So really, if people are concerned, they simply need to look at the federal government as being the insurer of their deposits. And again, having your money in a mattress is not a safe thing. Having your money in the bank where it's accessible by you and insured is the smart thing.
Okay, I think that's good advice. So, so the feds then really don't need to do anything more than they're already doing to secure people's personal savings, checkings, and what have you.
That's right. Yeah, it in many ways, in banking, it's business as usual. We do recognize that for customers who are affected by the coronavirus, perhaps they're in an industry that has been shut down and so they've been laid off, that it won't be business as usual in their day-to-day lives. We also want to make sure that customers know that if they have been affected by the coronavirus through a layoff or something else, a family member being laid off, the bank is here to help. Call us, let us know what we can do to help you. If you're having trouble meeting your mortgage payment, we want to keep people in their homes and not disrupt their lives any more than they already are.
So are you finding, based on that, I mean, the number one thing that through all these interviews that I keep doing is this sort of comes up, it might get touched on a little bit, but is to communicate with your financial institutions about your situation sooner than later. Don't shy away from it. It's a hard phone call to make, but it might be necessary to make. So are you counseling people that if they indeed have a loan with you and they've suffered these set of circumstances, that communication first and foremost is really what needs to happen?
Absolutely. And no one should be afraid to call us and share with us that they're having a challenge because of what's going on right now. We want to help. It doesn't do us any good. It doesn't do them any good for us not to be empathetic and compassionate. And we're going to do whatever we can to help people through this on the banking side. So we're working on some programs right now that as soon as they're finalized, we'll ensure are posted on the bank's website. We're going to be using social media to continue to message people. We're here, call us. Don't be afraid to call us. You're not alone. That's, I think, an important message. Don't sit at home thinking, oh my gosh, I've just been laid off. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. I don't know what to do. You're not alone. Call us. We understand.
Now, I know that you're speaking specifically about Brattleboro and savings and loan, but would you say that the entire banking industry would echo that sentiment?
Absolutely. In fact, if you go to the American Bankers Association's website, aba.com, they have a list of banks that is being updated every day, banks that have submitted this information to them, talking about the different things that they're doing and how they're reaching out to people and the programs that they have. And I will tell you, it isn't just the true local community banks that are providing these types of assistance. It is the big money center banks. I know everybody feels, oh, the Wells Fargos of the world or whomever, they don't care. They do.
Right. Well, I mean, I think if everybody fails, they don't survive it either. So maybe that's a way to spin it. So there's a ton of talk about the stimulus package that's in front of the Senate, and the rules around corporate bailout seem somewhat lax. Are we wrong to not care about the corporations, or should we just have laser focus on Main Street when it comes to the stimulus package?
Well, I think we are wrong not to care about corporations because we need those corporations to employ people, not just directly by those corporations, but how that trickle effect goes out. So you have a corporation like Boeing, for example. We're talking, there's a lot of talk about the airline industry, and Boeing's troubles with the 737 MAX aside, you think about the number of employees that they have, that if they're not producing planes for the airline industry, aren't going to have jobs. But then the people, the companies from which they purchase raw materials for making the airplanes, if they're not purchasing those raw materials, then those employees, and so on and so on. And it truly ripples out. It's, the old image of, throwing a stone in the pond and seeing how far the ripples extend. That said, I think it's critical that any assistance that the federal government, through taxpayer dollars, provides to corporations, and I don't care if you're talking about a multinational corporation based in the United States or if you're talking about smaller corporations, there have to be restrictions on what they're using those dollars for. I had an opportunity to be on a telephone call yesterday afternoon with Senator Crapo, who's the head of the Senate Banking Committee, and he was adamant that the proposal to provide benefits or assistance to large corporations includes a strict prohibition that they cannot use the money for stock buybacks, which we did see back in the bailouts of 2008, 2009, and they cannot use any of the money for executive compensation. So, but those are only two things. There are other restrictions that I think will likely need to be put in place to ensure that our money, Peter, it's your money, it's my money, is being used responsibly.
Yeah.
I have my own concerns when I listen to the news and hear that so far the bill is 1,400 pages in length, and you just have to ask yourself, perhaps cynically, facetiously, what's hidden in there that we're not going to know about until it's too late.
Right. And I mean, we can go down. We can do an opinion show later, but let's. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I'm not gonna weigh in on some of the things that I've heard that I think are just like, this isn't the time for that.
Right.
But there, as you would expect, there is some of that.
All right, let's do this. Let's bring it home and discuss a few things that the Brattleboro Savings and Loan and maybe some other local banks are doing during this crisis. Is there something that you guys are doing? I mean, you first of all, Brattleboro Savings and Loan is a tremendous community partner, and we know that your dedication to the community is really fairly second to none. But is there anything that you are doing that are fulfilling needs now that we should discuss?
Well, again, I think that the important thing is that for us, we're trying to conduct business as close to business as usual as we can. We are still meeting with customers who are interested in borrowing money. There are people who are looking to refinance their home mortgages, so we're encouraging them to, not refrain from moving forward with that. If people are buying homes, we're making mortgages for that. As we meet with our business borrowing customers, some of them continue to have opportunities because they may not be in a hospitality-related business. So, we've got to keep things moving as close to normal as possible. I think, most importantly is the message that, we want to help. We are taking actions to minimize the fees that we're charging people. For example, some people are overdrawing their accounts, and we're taking a very close look at waiving the typical fees that we would charge for honoring an overdraft. If people are running late on their loan payments, we're taking a look at waiving those fees. It's ensuring that our staff is safe, that we're meeting the needs of our customers. And again, we're open for business. Customers can call in. I will also say that, on a personal level, Edie and I, not the Edie that you can use to calculate your FDIC insurance, Edie and I have made a personal commitment to order takeout from local restaurants at least 3 times a week through this to try and, contribute something to keeping them open.
Right.
And, if other people have the means to do that, I certainly hope that they will also do that.
Yeah, it is definitely a time to kind of deploy that thing I love to say, that unity for community, even though it's got a slightly different meaning this time. We can't really unify. We have to do that 6 feet apart, given the following COVID-19 protocols. But if we can do and follow your and Edie's lead as making that small commitment to doing something along those lines, I think it goes a long way to helping us. And I think how we act right now, as individuals, as banks, as radio stations, as public communications and media, how we act right now will directly correlate as to how we rebound from this on the other side. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, I think, sorry.
no, go ahead.
You know, each of us doing what we can to continue to support our local economy, I believe is critical to how our local economy is going to look when this is actually behind us.
Yeah, I do agree. And you know, just a quick reminder, I mean, we will eventually get through this. I don't know what it looks like. We'll weather the storm. You know, I've jokingly said we may need a new roof when the storm passes, but we'll be able to weather this. And with community partners like the Brattleboro Savings and Loan here, at least locally, I think you know, helping guide and direct us, and you know, some strong counsel from folks like you and other staff members, and just to take it outside outside the walls of the Brattleboro Savings and Loan, I think that you're going to see a lot of our local institutions willing to help. I think that there will be money coming down from the feds that will help. So I guess saying that, stepping off my soapbox, is there anything out there that you feel like we might have missed, that people tuning in might need to hear, or a piece of information that might help?
So one of the pieces of the legislation that's working its way through the Senate right now has to do with making credit available to small businesses. And small businesses are defined somewhat broadly by the SBA. But there are loan funds that are going to be available to small businesses. And the primary goal of those funds will be for businesses to keep their staff employed. They can borrow money for other purposes, but the important thing for business owners to understand is, right now the plan is that every dollar they borrow that is used directly to keep an employee on the payroll will be forgiven. There will be debt that they do not have to repay. So,
All right.
and I think that's better than just sending checks to people. I mean, those can be very helpful, but if a business understands that it can borrow money to meet payroll and keep people on staff and not lay them off or bring them back if they have already laid them off, that they will not have to repay that portion of what they borrow. That's big.
That's huge. That is huge.
So,
And I'm sure it will come with a little red tape and extra paperwork, but well worth it if we can just keep our economy moving forward and keep, you know, it right now, just earning the same amount of money in this day and age, about 2 weeks deep into this pandemic, is its own stimulus package.
right. And I think, you know, Peter, if you look back in history and all of the things that we have lived through and survived, and in some cases come out stronger on the other end. I mean, you go back 100 years and you had the Spanish flu. You know, it took a terrible toll. We survived. We had World War II. You know, we survived. We've had almost countless recessions that have hurt, but we have come through, and in many cases have been stronger for it. We had Hurricane Irene. We had the Brooks House fire. We had the Great Recession of 2008, 2009 that, you know, we saw the stock market go below 10,000 points.
Yeah.
It recovers. The typical recovery, here's just a statistic for people who have money in 401ks in the market, and they're thinking, oh my gosh, you know, I've had a third of my investment wiped out. The typical recovery after an event such as this is 24 to 30 months. So it will come back.
Right. A investing friend of mine once told me, long term, don't squirm.
That's great advice. And I would say to people, you haven't lost any money unless you sell.
Right. Exactly. Well, Dan Yates, thanks for jumping on a call to action today. I really appreciate you. I think it's some good sound information that you've gave people. Hopefully they find some comfort in it. I think it's right now the number one thing that we need to be showing everybody and everything is just a little patience.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Fish.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Take care, Dan.
You too. Bye.